Ineffective and immoral, or just and legal? The California death penalty debate is raging. So let's discuss with the host of Left Coast News, Ethan Behrman, and Kent Scheidegger from the Criminal Justice Legal Foundation. Great to have you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.
All right, Ethan, you heard the report there. We're hearing from victims' families. I mean, children who were tortured and killed, police officers who killed in the line of duty. They call this appalling. They are heartbroken over this. The Sacramento County Sheriff says this, that the governor has re-victimized the families of sexually tortured and murdered children, murdered peace officers, and other victims of horrific crimes in favor of the most depraved among us who've been judged and sentenced to death by a jury of their peers. Ethan.
Yeah, I have the deepest sympathies for the victim's family. What an absolute tragedy that they've had to go through. However, a state-sanctioned killing of another human being is dangerous and terrible territory, and we're surrounded by countries that we would reject, or at least we claim to reject, for the UN Human Rights Council. The leaders in the world for death penalty are China, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan. These aren't Western democracies that do state-sanctioned killings like this, so why do we want to be in that company? And let's give these people an opportunity to repent and in their own lives. They have to be alive to do that.
A number of those countries that you're talking about, we're not talking about due process, and we're talking about sham trials and places where people don't have any human rights. I mean, this is a jury of their peers, and just back in 2016, as Trey said, it was put to a referendum, and the public said not only did they want to keep the death penalty in California, they wanted to expedite it. So what do you tell those voters? It doesn't matter?
No, it's not that it doesn't matter. It's that we need to be better. We don't need to give in to our tribal base instincts. If we talk about Kohlberg's stages of moral development, I mean, to say this type of right and wrong and we kill because of it is at a pre-conventional level. We're better than that. Okay. And better, more importantly, though, is to my Jewish brothers and sisters and Christian brothers and sisters, both Deuteronomy and Romans say that this is not our job as mortal humans to pass this kind of judgment and take this level of vengeance on one another.
Well, they certainly recognize the idea of justice in the Bible. So let me bring in Kent here for the other side of this, because the ACLU there in California, Kent, says this: for decades now, California has propped up a costly, flawed death penalty system that has failed to deliver on its promise of justice and puts the lives of innocent people at risk. Kent.
Well, it's failed because the legislature for many years failed to pass the reforms we needed to get this thing implemented and to get it moving. So we finally got it on the ballot and finally got the reforms passed in 2016. And what's important here is that California and the United States is a democracy. And we had this debate. We heard all the same arguments like the ones Ethan was just making. And we had the counter arguments to those arguments, and we decided. And the governor has misused the power of reprieve to set aside the decision of the people. That's not what the power of reprieve is for. The power of reprieve is to halt an execution in an individual case when there's some problem with the case that needs to be looked into. It's not for this kind of blanket use to evade and defeat the decision of the people in passing a law.
Kent, do you expect there will be a legal challenge to what the governor's done?
Well, on the reprieve part of it, I am very skeptical that any challenge in court could succeed. Courts do not generally interfere with the exercise of the executive clemency power. As far as him, repealing the execution, well, even a blanket decision. I mean, it's kind of a sacred cow, and courts don't generally review it. There's no basis for them to review it.
Well, we'll watch and see, because I know there are some who are making noise about challenging this in some courts of law. But in the meantime, Ethan and Kent, thank you for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.